sample. So let's make another application. So I'm going to create, I have a second Visual Studio open, and I'm going to create an Uno application here. And let's call this my Uno app. My Uno app 4 is fine. So what we want to do is put breakpoints inside of the Uno app that we've built on the side here. And let's say when we run the Android app, for instance, be able to go into parts of the application. So let's say, for instance, I want to go inside of the window or current here. So if I go, let's do it for Android. So one thing to do first is to make sure that we're running on Android 11. So that's one of the things that is very important. And this is something that we generally change once per year. And it needs to be aligned with what's inside the Uno solution. So what we're doing generally is when we're building and overriding, to override a NuGet package, we need to change this file. So we have the cross-targeting override props.sample. So you need to copy that file and make it one that's called cross-targeting override props. All this is documented on the Uno platform docs site, right? So you can find it there as well. So in that file, what you're going to do is go to the line that's called Uno target framework override, and you need to change it to one of the target frameworks that's available here. So the one we're looking for is Mono Android 11. So 11 is the API level. So you're going to change that to be the same as what the app is using. So in this case, we were running Android 10, so we moved up to Android 11. So that changes it, and it needs to match the Android level that's specified in the Uno target framework override. Now, once you're done with this, let's build the app and try to see what happens when we go and debug this. So let's do this. We're on Android. I don't see anything here, so I think we're going to open that. Let's go and open that solution inside of Visual Studio 2022. It's easier to read. Oh, no. I think I had it there. There it is. Okay, so let's open it in 2022. And so if we select the Android app to be a starter, let's see if we have an emulator showing up. It should be. I think I had one. I had one set up. There it is. Okay, so I clicked it, so it's going to start my emulator here. I think I had, oh, that's something I was doing a few weeks ago. Okay, so the emulator started up, and then we're going to see what the build says. So Android is taking a bit of time to build for the first build, and we can allow access. So it's taking a bit of time for the first build, because it takes a bit of time to take all the Java source and generating the package is something that is adjusted automatically after the first build. So once your build is done, then the seconds and afters, the subsequent builds are growing faster. So that's it. My app starts, and it should hit my breakpoint somewhere. There it is. And now if I do F11, so step into, you'll see that it doesn't go into it. So how I can determine that it's actually not loading anything, I can search for uno.ui in the output window, and I can see here that in line where we have uno.ui.dll, it says external. So what that means is that the external code that you can see here is grayed out, and especially that one. So you can see the path here is not my local path. It's the path that we have on our build servers, and it doesn't show anything. So now what we can do is stop the application, and we're going to change the version of the Uno UI version here to a dev build. Generally, we take the latest one because we generally update for we generally make updates to the last one. So we're going to update those two to match the latest 3.10 dev builds. And then in the meantime, we're going to go into Uno and we're going to make sure that we have the latest master as well. So let's pull this so we have the latest master. There we go. So now we do have the latest master. So now what we can do is that, so now that the version in my application has been updated, I take a look at the installed version and I can see that it's 3.10 dev sec 570. So I'm going to take that version. I'm going to put that into the NuGet override version that's available here. If it wants to copy, it doesn't look like it did. There it is. So now what that will do is that it will force the Uno build here to override the install version of the NuGet in the NuGet packages. So if we go into Uno, I'm sorry, let's go to temp folder. Sorry, oh, it's not temp folder. It's actually in the NuGet folder here. If I go to uno.ui, you will find that the latest one that was installed was actually the one that I just downloaded. So the fact that I updated it in my sample application, then it goes up and displayed here. Now, you can see here that it's all the targets that are supported by Uno, but the one that we're interested in is the 11th one. And we can see that the dates for the files here are dating from somewhere this morning Eastern time. So it's not the time that I have, which is here at 3 p.m. So now what I will do is open the solution here using the Android filter. So we take that filter, and what that will do is it will open the solution for Uno, but only loading up everything that's needed specifically for building an Android solution, or override for that matter. So what we can do now is take the Uno UI project specifically. So it depends on the targets, but for Uno Android, so Xamarin Android specifically, so .NET 6 is a bit different, but this one, so it's all in the documentation, but for Xamarin Android, you can find it. So you need to rebuild this. So let's let Visual Studio do it. Okay. So there may be multiple reasons why why the build doesn't happen. You need to make sure that there are no individual errors that may happen beforehand. There was a question before: what type of machines should be used to build the Uno solution, even if it's partial. A machine that has at least 16 gigabytes of memory is very important. Otherwise, if you go below, your machine's going to be swapping all the time, and it's going to take a very long time to build. The machine I'm running on is 32 gigs of memory, and it's an M2 drive, so it's actually going quite fast. It's an i9 processor as well, so that helps for building faster. You need to make sure also that you have the Android 11 SDKs installed. We generally have messages showing it up if the build doesn't work properly, but just in case, you need to do that using the Android SDK manager. But in general, if you install Visual Studio latest, you're going to have all that installed. So you need to have Android 11 installed there, specifically the Android SDK platform 30, and add on or the images if you want to debug on it. So that's it. We've built the Uno platform for that version. So now if we go back to the folder that contained the sources, now we can see that Uno.ui has been overridden. It's been built a minute ago, and many of the files are there, and especially the debug symbols. So everything that's available has been overridden, so you can now debug in the application. So now if we go back to our application here, then in general, just pressing F5 to build is just enough, because Visual Studio is picking up that the DLLs have changed. and then you'll be able to rebuild the application without doing anything. And you should be able to dig into this. So one note about this, and that's going to change. I don't know if it's changed actually for .NET 6, but we can probably validate that afterwards in a different section. But there's something that's called source link, and source link is able to provide the debugger for sources for a file for which it doesn't have the sources locally. So it's going to go and fetch the sources directly in GitHub if that's available there, or into Azure DevOps or GitLab or whatever. And that will allow you to debug your application more easily without having this. And that works for Skia. So if you're, let's say, debugging a Skia application, that will work from Visual Studio on Windows. You're going to be able to step into some code that you don't have the sources for, and that's going to work right away. You won't be able to modify the files though, and that's something that we should be able to do right away, and we're going to take a look at that. So if I press F11 to step into, you can see that now I am inside of the UNO sources. So if I dive into, I can see that I'm inside of Interval Get Current Window. The window is already available, so I don't need to do that. But you can see that you have the ability to go and see the content of all this. So you can even go back to, let's say, a UI activity here and see the values of the handlers and a few other things like that. So that's the interesting part. Now, one of the things that you need to do let's say you want to debug. Let's go and debug Textblock, for instance. I think we do have a Textblock inside of this application. So there it is. It shows up with my custom version. So let's say you want to debug and go and debug the Textblock, for instance. So I want to be able to see what happens when I set the text on the Textblock control. So to do that, then you go back to UNO, and then you search for Textblock, for instance. We're going to try to find a file that contains the Textblock specifically. I don't know if it's the one. No, it's not the one. Textblock.cs. There it is. And then we're going to find the text property if it's there. I don't find it, so we're going to try to find it here. Text property. There it is. And then there's probably a property on text change. So I'm going to go into the on text change. So I want to put a breakpoint here. So what I did here is that I put a breakpoint, but I'm not in the right solution. So you can see if there's no debugging routing here. So what I want to do is take the path of that file, go to the other application, open the file, go to the line that I wanted. So it's 225, and then put a breakpoint there. And now you can see that resolve breakpoints worked. And the debugger actually picked it up. So now I don't think we can. Let's see if I rotate the device, what happens. Should be refreshing the. No, it did not refresh anything. So probably it's because there's nothing to redraw. So it doesn't need to. So the text doesn't change. So now let's try this. If we restart the application again, we should hit the breakpoint this time for the first one that I didn't remove, likely. Yeah, that one I didn't remove. And then we can see that now we're in text change where the old value was nothing and the new value is nothing as well. So that's pretty odd. Oh yeah, that's what we're initialize property, which does empty. So that's probably something that we could improve at that point. But anyways, so we should be stepping into that one. So now it's saying that new value is hello world. So that now we have successfully been able to put a breakpoint inside of the runtime by overriding the NuGet package in your NuGet cache. So that's not something that .NET does by default. It's something that the UNO solution does by itself. It determines the location of your NuGet cache and tries to override it. Now the problem is that we're overriding the cache. So that means that if another application uses that specific package, then it's going to use the custom version that you built, and it's not going to be the official version that runs from the UNO NuGet package. So that's why we suggest to override dev packages of UNO instead of overriding official release builds of UNO. Otherwise, you're going to be running into sorts of trouble. So we do have messages that say we have a file here that says if you're running on an overridden build of Uno, it's going to tell you that. I think we have that message somewhere in there. No, it's not available there because it's not the full build, but we try to put and warn you of the fact that you're using an overridden build of Uno. So just so you know, make sure that you remove the files. So now once you're done, you can just delete the folder with the version there, and then you're going to start up again with a new updated version that works properly for you. So that's it. And the last one I wanted to show you is the fact that when you're running a GTK build. So also, before I go to the GTK build, if you go to iOS or any other target, then you're going to fall back to the original version of Uno that comes from the NuGet package that was published originally by the Uno team. So that means that if you want to debug this for another target, then you have to override it again in your Uno solution by changing the platform. So you need to go back into here and change it to be another filter, and also so another filter and then another override here. So let's say if you want to go for WebAssembly or another, you need to change this, go to Xamarin iOS, for instance, then open the filter for iOS, then build again the Uno UI project specifically, and then you'll be able to debug that into the other platforms. Now, I just said that for GTK and WPF, it's a bit different because it uses the full runtime. It's probably going to be, I'm not sure if .NET 6 is going to be different because the full runtime is there, but the debugger is different, but we'll see. So let's see if I put back my breakpoint here, if we can dive into window current and see the content of the method window current for GTK specifically. There it is. So if I dive into it, doesn't work, but it could be because I didn't add the right configuration in the debugger option. So let's go dig into that one. So if you go to, sorry, it's a debugger somewhere. I lost it. Debugging, there you go. And you have general, and then you have just my code. So that doesn't have, so you have to remove that one. Otherwise it won't go into the sources that's not his. And then you have to enable source link support for that to work properly. So let's see. So now I've developed well, I'm not a Microsoft employee. I'm an Uno platform employee. So so that was a comment on the Twitch. So I'm not a, but yeah. So now that I disable the just my code, now I can dive into the source code that comes from the source link. So now if I press yes, then sorry, did I step over? Yeah. So did something else. So I do contents. No, it's still not available. So maybe there's something else that I'm missing. Download source link. So you have to, so for some reason it doesn't do it for F11. I'm not really sure why, but let's do it that way. So you can download source and continue debugging. And now you can see that we are inside of the application.skia.cs file that shows the initialization of the application class. You can even go into the dispatcher if you want. So that's the dispatcher executing the dispatch of the item that was executed. So that's it. That's a quick overview of what needs to be done to debug an application using your own build of Uno. And if you have any questions, drop us a question on Stack Overflow or directly on the discussions for our GitHub.